Here's a guy who seems a little disappointed with the quality of atheists these days.
Atheists. Thanks for clicking on this video. It means a lot to me, really. I'm a religious guy who's devoted my life to a God you don't believe in, so you're taking a bit of a risk here that I might insult you, make you feel bad about your life, or at the very least, waste your time.
Even if there is a God, and you manage to convince me that one exists, you wouldn't make me feel bad about my life. It's not like being an atheist was a choice I made. If it had been a choice, and that choice turned out to be wrong, then it would make sense for me to feel regret about making the wrong choice, but that's just not the case. The reason I don't believe in God is because, despite decades of study, I've simply never successfully discovered how to believe in one. That's not my fault, therefore it would be silly for me to feel bad about it.
I really do appreciate it, and I hope not to do any of those things here. Rather, I'd like to pose a question to you. It's a very simple question, in fact. It is more of an exhortation from me to you. This question is not meant to trick you or convert you. I don't have some super ingenious question that will somehow inspire faith in a deity, as much as I'd love to. I'd rather just like to challenge you. You say that you're an atheist, that you don't believe in gods, and I just want to know one thing. Are you a good one? Are you a good atheist? It's a question that I ask with two things in mind. The first being related to morality. While religion in general, and Christianity in particular, doesn't necessarily make someone a moral person, these ways of life do necessarily demand morality of adherence. There is a particular code of life that one must live. In the case of Catholic Christianity, that code is one of peace and justice, mercy and forgiveness. It's a code that seeks to care for the poor and seek reparations for those who take advantage of the vulnerable.
Wouldn't you want to seek reparations from those who take advantage of the vulnerable instead of for them? Was that a Freudian slip?
Now, Lord knows we don't always live up to our founder and have actually done some pretty atrocious things through the years, but it is our faith that at least informs us when we do these things and gives us and reminds us a moral code to live by, reminds us that it's not an option.
If that were the case, I would expect that a lot more steps would have been taken to address these issues before all the negative PR started to be published.
We must strive to be good people. Now, as someone who doesn't have this foundation, who doesn't believe in a God or adhere to a religion, there is no superstructure making this demand on your life, no one telling you how to live in certain situations.
Yes, that's right. Laws do not exist, cops do not exist, prisons do not exist.
Without a belief in an afterlife, there might be a feeling that all the world is futile, so what difference does it make?
The difference our behavior makes is that some behaviors reduce suffering and some increase it. The fact that these behaviors and their consequences are finite rather than having eternal consequences in an afterlife does not mean that no consequences exist at all. It is not the case that they make no difference at all.
This, of course, does not need to be the case. Some of the world's greatest humanitarians, some of the most influential figures today promoting peace and justice efforts, are not adherents to a religion, but live morally out of a commitment to humanity, a recognition of our interconnectedness, an acknowledgement that there is something good in itself about loving one another, about sacrifice.
More specifically, one can attain personal satisfaction directly from those things. There need not be any objective standard of goodness in order for this to be the case.
And so I ask you, are you a good atheist? Even though there may be no eternal reward or punishment, even though you're free to do whatever you want, do you choose the virtuous path that benefits not only you, but others? I hope so.
Because I have a conscience that rewards me psychologically for benefiting others, these are not really distinct things for me. In most cases, to benefit others is to benefit myself.
The world needs good atheists. Now, of course, the word good points to more than just a sense of morality. It also represents an evaluation of aptitude. When I ask if you're a good atheist, I want to know if you're good at being an atheist. Do you articulate why you don't believe in God in a coherent way, or you just think that religion's dumb, so use logical fallacies? Have you explored the depths of your mind and heart, asking the real questions of life, of death, faith and reason, seeking to understand what this human life is really about? You just not want to go to church, so this'll do. Have you read the critical atheist thinkers of history? People like Nietzsche, Sartre, Feuerbach, Heidegger.
Yes, but you obviously didn't if you think Heidegger was a critical atheist thinker. He didn't really say much about the existence of God.
People who really ask the challenging questions, who pose thoughtful insights of the world. Or you just stick with people like Richard Dawkins, people who provide great sound bites for the cause, yippee, but do little to add anything to the world other than strawman arguments and divisiveness.
If your standard of a good atheist, in the sense of a competent one, is being well acquainted with the older literature and/or the academic literature as opposed to the popular literature, then yes, I am a good atheist. I have an honors degree in philosophy from a Catholic university which focused a lot on philosophy of religion.
Have you read for yourself the works of real theologians, people articulating our beliefs in the best way we know how? Karl Rahner, John Henry Newman, Joseph Ratzinger, Augustine of Hippo, Henri de Lubac? Or do you stick with the simplicity of evangelical pastors from some rural anti-intellectual church?
Sometimes those pastors are pretty funny and fun to respond to, but I've made plenty of videos responding to apologists with doctoral degrees.
I ask all of this not to be accusatory, at least not overly accusatory, but to simply challenge you to go deeper in your thought. Simply declaring yourself an atheist and going about your life isn't enough, just as saying you're a Christian and never reading the Bible wouldn't be enough. Ask more questions. Read more perspectives. Be able to articulate your understanding of the world with logic and reasoning that will actually add something to the world. Because here's the thing. People of faith need you to be good atheists. We do. As a Christian, I don't want you to be a bad atheist with an unexplored mind just regurgitating fallacies. I want you to ask questions that we've never thought to answer. I want you to be so smart that it challenges us to be smarter. As crazy as it sounds, I would much rather you be a good atheist than just an atheist.
Well, unless you have enough of an open mind to be willing to consider that your religion makes no sense, what you're really asking is for me to help you refine your evangelist sophistry. That doesn't seem like a good faith request to me. When I engage with apologists, I'm genuinely curious about whether they can convince me that a God exists. I'm open to being convinced that a God exists. Are you open to being convinced that a God does not exist? To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.